You're about to discover why your entire life could disappear in 72 hours. Not by nuclear war, not by a pandemic, but by the same event that's happened before and is happening again right now. In 1177 BC, 12 advanced civilizations disappeared simultaneously. Cities of millions turned to dust. People who woke up rich on a Monday were eating human flesh by Friday. Technologies that took 1,000 years to develop were forgotten within a generation. Archaeologists call it the Bronze Age collapse. But what they don't tell you is that all the signs that preceded that mass extinction are happening today. The same patterns, the same sequence, the same end approaching. And most terrifyingly back then, people had the skills to survive without civilization. They knew how to make fire, find water, and produce food. You die in 3 days without a supermarket, in a week without internet, in a month without medicine. When I show you what really happened that cursed year, and how it's repeating itself now, you'll understand why some billionaires are desperately building bunkers, because they know what you're about to discover. Total collapse isn't a question of if, but when. You want to know when? Let me show you exactly what it was like to live the day before the end of the world. Because in 1178 BC, no one imagined that in 12 months there would be nothing left. Forget that image of primitive peoples you were taught in school. Forget cavemen. Forget savages. In Ugarit, you would wake up in a 2-story house with running water. That's right. 3,000 years before Christ was born, your toilet flushed. Your breakfast, wheat bread imported from Egypt, olives from Greece, cheese from Cyprus, wine from Lebanon, all arrived through a trade network that made Amazon look amateurish. Ships with 300-ton capacities crossed the Mediterranean on fixed routes, with precise schedules, maritime insurance, and international contracts written in 4 languages. After coffee, you would check your messages not on your cell phone but on clay tablets that arrived by international mail. That's how it worked. You dictated your message to a scribe. He engraved it in clay, baked the tablet, and placed it in a clay envelope with his personal seal. And within 3 weeks, your letter was in Babylon, 2,000 kilometers away. There were stock exchanges where copper futures were traded, international courts that resolved trade disputes, ceramic credit cards you could use in any major city in the known world. Children went to school at age 6. They learned 3 writing systems of advanced mathematics, including square roots, astronomy, music, and international law. Medical texts described cataract surgeries, made dentures, treated depression with therapy and natural remedies. But here's the detail that will chill your blood. They were more prepared for the collapse than you. Even living in this comfort, everyone knew how to make fire, find water, recognize edible plants, build shelter, and make tools. It was basic knowledge. How do you know how to tie your shoes? You don't even know where your food comes from. They knew exactly. They could trace every grain of wheat from the field to the bread. You can't live 3 days without electricity. They built empires without even knowing what electricity was. And yet, with all this knowledge, with all this preparation, in 50 years they were turned to dust. Cities of 80,000 inhabitants were turned into piles of ash, where archaeologists find only gnawed bones, human bones, with marks of human teeth. But the collapse didn't begin with invasions or wars. It began with something much more subtle, something that is happening now as you watch this. It began with the climate going crazy. Everything started to go wrong in 1180 BC. Christ was the rains that didn't come. The Nile, which had flooded every year for 3,000 years, simply didn't overflow. The fields of Egypt, the breadbasket of the ancient world, turned to dust. But that was only the beginning. Then the impossible happened. The entire eastern Mediterranean went into simultaneous drought. Cyprus, Syria, Anatolia, Greece, as if someone had turned off the faucet of heaven. The ancient olive trees died standing up. The wheat failed to sprout. Cattle began to drop dead in the fields. March 12, 1180 BC. Engraved on this date is a clay tablet found in Ratusa, capital of the It Empire, the king's message to the Pharaoh of Egypt. My brother, it is a matter of life and death. Send grain immediately, or my people will die before the next full moon. The It Empire controlled half of modern Turkey, had an army of 100,000 men, the most advanced military technology of the time, and begged for food like beggars. The price of wheat rose 400% in 2 years. 400. A family that spent 1/3 of its income on food now needed everything it earned just to avoid starvation, and many couldn't. But here's what historians don't tell you. We have temperature records from the time preserved in ice cores from Greenland. The average temperature has risen 3 degrees in a decade. 3 degrees C seems like a small amount. Today, with 1.5 degrees of warming, California is on fire. Europe is roasting. Category C hurricanes are common. And then the migrations began. First came the shepherds from the north. They descended with their hungry flocks in search of pasture. Then the farmers from the interior, their lands turning to desert. Then entire cities emptied. In Ugarit, King Amurap wrote desperately to the King of Cyprus, "Enemy ships have been sighted at sea. My cities are burning. My army has been destroyed. Help us." Cyprus's response, "Brothers, you are on your own. Our ships are defending our own coasts. Our soldiers can barely protect our walls. May the gods have mercy on us all." You know what's most terrifying? Open today's newspaper. Record drought in the Mediterranean. Food prices are skyrocketing. Millions of climate refugees are on the move. Countries are closing their borders. The same sequence, the same script, only the names changed. May the gods have mercy on us all. These were the last words written before the silence. Because then they arrived, the sea peoples, and the civilized world discovered what true terror was. But here's what no one tells you. They weren't savage barbarians. They were people like you, entire families fleeing famine, drought, despair. Women carrying dead babies in their arms because they had no milk to nurse. Men who had been farmers, artisans, merchants, now transformed into something worse than animals by hunger. Imagine 200,000 people moving like a human wave. Not an organized army, but a desperate mass that devoured everything in its path like locusts. They arrived in one city, consumed every grain of food, every drop of water, and moved on to the next, leaving only bones. Pylos was the first major city to fall, population 25,000. Archaeologists have found the throne room with skeletons still sitting in supplication. Men, women, children, all with cracked skulls, methodically executed one by one. But the worst was Garrett. 80,000 people. 0 survivors. 0. The city was found with dinner still on the tables, half-finished trade contracts, pottery kilns still with pieces inside, as if everyone had evaporated until the mass grave was discovered, bodies piled in layers, many with signs of cannibalism, human teeth marks on the thigh bones where there's more flesh. Many scenes found something that haunts me to this day. A child of about 6 years old was buried hugging her pet dog, both with their throats slit. The parents probably killed them to spare them from what was to come. That was the level of desperation. The sea peoples didn't conquer. They obliterated. They didn't want to rule cities. They wanted food, and when the food ran out, they ate each other. There are tablets describing makeshift markets where human flesh was sold, 2 measures of wheat for a young man's thigh. Within 50 years, 90% of the Eastern Mediterranean's population was dead. Civilizations that took 3,000 years to build were reduced to ashes in a generation. 12 languages ceased to be spoken. Technologies that wouldn't be reinvented for 1,000 years were forgotten. But do you know what's worse? They were exactly like today's climate refugees. Syria, Venezuela, Honduras, millions fleeing drought, war, famine. The only difference is that we still have strong borders. But when billions of people start moving because of climate change, no borders will hold them back. And when that happens, what happened in Ugarit will seem like a picnic. But do you know what the real horror was? It wasn't the massacres. It was what came after. The total collapse of everything that made life possible. Let me explain something that will keep you up at night. Bronze doesn't exist in nature. It's an alloy, 90% copper, 10% tin. It seems simple. The copper came from Cyprus, the tin from Afghanistan, 3,000 kilometers away. When trade routes collapsed, bronze ran out. Bronze ran out, tools ran out. Tools ran out, agriculture ran out. Agriculture ran out. Real famine began. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering there was no more steel. No cars, buildings, bridges, tools, knives, nothing. That's what happened. In 2 years, a civilization that had mastered advanced metallurgy could no longer make a decent knife. The numbers are blood-curdling. Before the collapse, the population density was 40 people per kilometer in the fertile areas, then 2. What happened to the other 38? Famine, disease, cannibalism, documented in at least 17 archaeological sites. In Tiryns, they found human bones with cut marks identical to those of animal bones for consumption. They broke the bones to suck out the marrow. Tablets from the time describe markets where mothers sold their dead children for meat. 3 shekels per kilometer of child, 5 per young adult. But the intellectual collapse was even worse. Writing disappeared, it didn't evolve, it didn't change. It vanished. Entire generations were born and died illiterate. Imagine all of humanity's knowledge evaporating in a single generation. Medicine forgotten, mathematics lost, history erased. Now comes the part that will make you panic. Our civilization is 1,000 times more fragile. They needed 2 trade routes to make bronze. Your cell phone has components from 37 different countries. Without lithium from Bolivia, cobalt from Congo, rare earths from China, silicon from Taiwan, so it becomes an expensive paperweight. Without chips from Taiwan. In 6 months, there will be no more new cars, computers, medical equipment, or defense systems. Taiwan produces 92% of the world's advanced chips, an island that China threatens to invade. Without fertilizers from Russia and Belarus, 40% of global food production disappears. 1 billion people die of hunger in 18 months. It's not speculation, it's simple math. Available calories divided by mouths to feed. Do you know how long our cities have food stored? 3 days, 72 hours. After that, the empty shelves you saw during the pandemic will seem like abundance. And when real famine hits, you'll discover what your neighbors are capable of. But those who survived the first collapse discovered something worse, that surviving can be crueler than dying, because they entered what historians call the Dark Ages, 400 years of pure nightmare. Life expectancy plummeted from 50 to 30, but this number hides the real horror. Half of all children died before age 5. Of those who survived, half died before age 15. Reaching 30 was the exception, not the rule. In Tiryns, the palace that housed kings became a literal goat pen. Archaeologists found half-meter layers of dung on imported marble floors, frescoes depicting divine scenes covered in dried excrement, where ambassadors negotiated treaties, animals defecated. Medical knowledge evaporated. They knew how to perform cataract surgery 200 years ago. Carter 400 years later. The treatment for headaches was to pierce the skull with a stone to let the demons out. We found skulls with 5-6 holes. The person survived the first, second, third treatment until they couldn't survive anymore. They forgot how to make quality pottery, ceramics, something they mastered 3,000 years ago. The pots from this period are crooked, poorly fired, and break easily, as if adults had the technical knowledge of 5-year-olds. But the scariest thing is that they forgot their own history. Within 300 years, the ruins of Mycenae were considered the work of mythological giants, the Cyclopes. No one believed normal humans could have built such a thing. Their own ancestry became legend. Knossos, the capital of the Minoan civilization, with its 13-room palace complex, became the myth of the Minotaur's labyrinth. People lived 15 kilometers from the ruins and thought it was the home of monsters they were afraid to go near. The survivors organized themselves into bands of no more than 50 people. More than that, they couldn't feed themselves. Agriculture was just basic subsistence. They planted the same field until the soil died. Then they migrated like nomads, but worse because they lacked the ancient knowledge of true nomads. We found skeletons from this period with signs of severe rickets, scurvy, profound anemia, and malnutritional diseases that had been eradicated 1,000 years earlier. Teeth fell out at age 20. The bones of 30-year-olds looked like those of 70-year-olds today. And the violence. 90% of male skeletons from the period show signs of violent trauma. Cracked skulls, broken ribs, arrowheads lodged in bones. It wasn't war, it was daily survival. Kill or be killed for a sack of grain. They had been the most advanced civilization on the planet. In 400 years, they lived worse than their ancestors of 2,000 years earlier. It's as if we're back to living like Jesus' time. No worse, because at least back then they knew the basic techniques. The survivors of the collapse knew nothing, but even they in their most degraded state would survive 1,000 times better than you. Now let me be brutally honest about your real chances of survival. Spoiler, they're 0. Let's do a test. You have 30 seconds to answer. Okay, how do you make a fire without matches or a lighter? Time's up. Dead of hypothermia on the first cold night. Next time, you find a river. How do you purify water without boiling it? Don't know. Dead of dysentery in 5 days. Shitting blood until you dehydrate. Hunger is nagging. You see plants everywhere. Which ones are edible? That one looks like spinach. Wrong, it's belladonna. Dead in 3 hours, convulsing and vomiting your own organs. You cut yourself, got an infection, without antibiotics. How to treat it? Don't know. Gangrene in 4 days, sepsis in 7, dead in 10, delirious with fever. One person in 1177 BC, Christ mastered 47 basic survival skills. He knew how to make ropes from plant fibers, tan leather, identify 80 edible plants, track animals, build traps, make stone tools, find water in the desert, preserve food without refrigeration, treat wounds with medicinal plants, predict the weather by observing clouds, navigate by stars. You don't even know where your food comes from. You think meat grows in a supermarket tray. You've never killed a chicken. You've never grown anything you've eaten. Your survival knowledge is limited to ordering an Uber when your car breaks down. Your great-grandfather, born in 1920, could butcher and clean a pig, fix anything with wire and ingenuity, make soap from ashes, build a house with his own hands. You don't know how to change a tire, but here's the worst part. You're not just ignorant, you're physically incapable. The average person in 1177 BC, you walked 20 kilometers a day. You squeaked climbing 2 flights of stairs. They carried 50 kilo on their backs for hours. You complain about the laptop backpack. Your eyes glaze over from so much screen time. Without glasses, you can't see a predator at 10 meters. Your ears are deaf to danger, accustomed to headphones. You can't distinguish the sound of running water from the wind. Your sense of smell, atrophied. You can't smell the decay that indicates contaminated water. And psychologically, you panic if the Wi-Fi goes down. You have an anxiety attack if you forget your cell phone. Depression if you don't get a like on Instagram. Imagine when you don't have food for 3 days. When you see your child starving. When you have to choose between eating your dog or dying. Studies show that 95% of the urban population would die within 90 days in a total collapse. The remaining 5%, former military personnel, farmers, a few preppers, you're not among them and the collapse doesn't warn you. It could start tomorrow, it could have started yesterday, and you haven't noticed yet. In fact, let me show you something terrifying. The same 7 signs that preceded the collapse of 117 BC are all happening now simultaneously. First sign, extreme climate change. 1180 BC, 3 degrees Celsius of warming in a decade. Today, 1.5 degrees Celsius in 50 years and accelerating. Canada registering 49 degrees Celsius, people literally cooking alive indoors. The Mediterranean in historic drought, just like before the collapse. Second sign, mass migration. They had the sea peoples. We have 5 million Syrians, 7 million Venezuelans, caravans of Hondurans. But that's just the beginning. The World Bank projects 2 billion climate refugees by 2050. 2 billion. The sea peoples numbered 200,000 and destroyed 12 civilizations. Third sign, collapse of supply chains. They lost their tin routes. We had a ship stuck in the Suez Canal for 6 days and 400 billion in trade stopped. A chip factory in Taiwan catches fire and global car production drops 30%. We're one event away from total collapse. Fourth sign, resource wars. Ukraine and Russia fighting over grain that feeds 1 billion people. China surrounding Taiwan, which produces 90% of advanced chips. Israel and Palestine over water. India and Pakistan over rivers. Ethiopia and Egypt over the Nile. All happening now. Fifth sign, recurring pandemics. They had a plague that killed 30% of the population. We have COVID now. Monkeypox, bird flu looming. But worst of all, antibiotics ceasing to work. Superbugs killing 700,000 people a year. By 2050, 10 million a year, more than cancer. Sixth sign, collapsing trust in institutions. In 1177 BC, kings sent desperate letters without answers. Today, 43% of Americans believe there will be civil war within 5 years. No one trusts governments, media, science, conspiracy theories, or virality more than facts. Seventh sign, fatal technological dependence. They needed bronze. We need the internet, electricity, satellites, a cyber attack, a solar storm, an electromagnetic pulse, and we'll be back to the Stone Age in seconds, but without Stone Age capabilities. MIT conducted a study. They fed a supercomputer all the data on resources, population, and pollution, and ran 10,000 simulations. Result, civilizational collapse between 2040 and 2060. Best case scenario, 2060. Worst case scenario, 2030. That's 5 years from now. Your 10-year-old will be 15 when they start. 20 when they're at their peak, if they survive, which is statistically unlikely. And you know who's already figured this out? Billionaires. They're not building bunkers out of paranoia. They have access to data you'll never see, and what they're doing with this data will make your stomach churn. Mark Zuckerberg, $575 million in a bunker in Hawaii, 5,000 square meters underground, cars with enough energy, water, and food, a 300-ton armored door, an air system that filters radiation, viruses, and chemical warfare. It's not a house. It's Noah's Ark for the apocalypse. Jeff Bezos bought 300,000 acres in Texas, 3 times the size of São Paulo. He installed wind turbines, solar panels, artesian wells, and hydroponic greenhouses. He hired former Navy SEALs as security guards. He has fuel for 5,000 kilometers. Why would anyone need to flee 5,000 kilometers? Peter Thiel, New Zealand citizenship purchased for $12 million. A bunker in Queenstown with 10 years worth of food stored. 10 years. He knows something about the duration of what's coming. He hired experts in primitive agriculture. They're literally learning to live like they were 117 acres ago. Bill Gates, the largest farmland owner in the United States, owns 105,000 hectares. Not for investment, but for their own production when the global food system collapses. They have seeds for all essential crops in refrigerated vaults. They're preparing to repopulate agriculture. But the most sinister thing is what they're doing together. There's a secret group called The Event. They meet twice a year, discuss collapse scenarios, share survival strategies, and coordinate evacuation plans. Douglas Ruskoff, a futurist invited to speak for them, revealed the questions they asked. How to prevent security forces from rebelling when money is worthless. Explosive collars were suggested. Which region will best survive climate collapse? New Zealand and Patagonia top the list. How long until artificial intelligence replaces humans? 20 years at most. They're not preparing for the possibility. They're preparing for the certainty. LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman has openly said, more than half of Silicon Valley billionaires have some kind of doomsday plan. Samtman, CEO of OpenAI, has a deal with Peter. If the event happens, take a private jet together to New Zealand. Have backpacks ready, always within reach. Passports from multiple countries. Physical gold buried in secret locations. Google's Larry Page bought an island in the Fed. An entire island with a landing strip, a water desalinator, a medical bunker with ICU equipment. Why would anyone need a private ICU on a desert island? They know the collapse is mathematical, not speculative. They know the approximate date and are leaving you to die, but you still have a choice. 2 choices, only 2. And what you decide in the next 30 seconds could determine whether you see 2030. Option 1, ignore it and die, is the easiest. Close this video. Go back to TikTok. Keep scrolling. Wake up tomorrow, go to work. Pretend everything is fine. When the shelves are empty, when the lights go out, when the water stops, you can comfort yourself by saying you didn't know. A lie, but comforting. You will be. Statistics, one of the 3 billion who will die in the first wave. Hunger, thirst, violence, disease. Choose your favorite. Your children will look at you asking for food and you won't get it. They'll ask for water and you won't get it. They'll ask why you didn't prepare when you had the chance. What will you answer? Option 2, wake up and prepare. Not tomorrow, no, next week. Today, right now, you don't need a $500 million bunker. You need knowledge your ancestors had and you lost. 5 critical skills to master this month. Listen carefully because your life depends on it. First, water. Learn 3 purification methods without boiling. Charcoal, sand, sunlight. Second, fire. Master friction, flint, lens. Practice in the rain, in the wind with wet wood. Third, food. Identify 20 edible plants from your region. 20. Not on Google, in real life. Fourth, first aid without medication, improvised sutures, natural antibiotics, infection control. Fifth, defense. I'm not talking about weapons, I'm talking about of invisibility. How not to be a target. How to appear as if you have nothing when everyone is desperate. Form a network. Not an internet network, but a network of real people. 5 families at least, each with different skills. One knows medicine, another mechanics, another agriculture. Agree on signals, meeting points, protocols. When it happens, you multiply your chances of survival by 10. Basic supplies. I'm not talking about being a crazy prepper. I'm talking about 3 months. Water 1 gallon per person per day. Non-perishable food. Essential medicines. Hand tools, seeds, salt, lots of salt. It will be worth more than gold. Learn to grow a vegetable garden, even a small one, chickens if possible, not for the apocalypse, for the skill. When you need it, you'll know. Those who have never planted anything don't learn under pressure. Leave the city if you can. The city is a collapsing death trap. Too many people, little food, guaranteed violence, countryside, small town, rural community. The smaller, the better. But leave early, then it will be too late. Physical conditioning. Can carry 20 kg per 10 kg. No, start today. Can you go 3 days without eating? Practice fasting. Your body needs to remember how to survive. And most importantly, accept that the world as you know it is going to end. It's not pessimism, it's math. And now you have exactly 30 seconds to decide whether you'll be a victim or a survivor. I'll count. 30, 29, 28. Stop thinking and act. Grab your phone right now, go to the comments and type exactly this. I'm awake, your city, country. Do this now or accept that you chose to die. I'll wait 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you didn't type it, you're already dead. You just don't know it yet. Now share it, but not with just anyone. Share it with 3 specific people. That person you love and want alive. That friend who has practical skills. That relative who lives in the countryside. Write this exact message. Watch it in the next 10 minutes or it might be too late. Don't explain, don't argue, just send it. Every minute you delay, 1,000 people enter the zone of no return. Every hour you procrastinate, 24,000 future corpses are created. Do you want to be responsible for not warning your loved ones? Click subscribe now. Activate the bell. In the next video, I reveal the 10 specific skills that will separate the living from the dead, but only for those who act now. The algorithm doesn't show videos to those who don't engage. If you don't do this now, you'll never see me again. And when you need this information, it will be too late. Download the description of this video. There's a link. Urban Collapse Survival Manual, 700 pages, free for now. When the panic starts, I'll charge you, and you won't be able to pay because money will be worthless. There are people watching now who won't see the sunrise tomorrow. Pure statistics. For every 100,000 views, 300 people die in 24 hours. Heart attacks, accidents, violence. If you die tonight, what will your children do? Your partner. Have you prepared them, or will you let them die too? Write in the comments the name of a survival skill you'll learn this week. Not next month, this week. If you don't write it down, your brain won't register it as a commitment and you'll forget and die. 23 people have died since you started watching this video. Victims of the collapse that has already begun. It wasn't climate change that killed them. It was ignorance, the same ignorance that is killing you now if you don't act. Last chance. Comment, share, subscribe, download the manual, or accept your fate. The clock doesn't stop. The collapse doesn't wait. Death doesn't negotiate. Tick-tock, tick-tock, your turn to choose. Now, in 117 years of Christ, they ignored all the warnings. They thought they were special, that they were too advanced to fall. 3,000 years of civilization turned to dust because they waited too long to act. You just received the same warning. Look, I could beg you to like, share, subscribe. But you know what? If you don't, you understand that this can save your life. Nothing I say will convince you. But think about it this way. That video appearing on your screen right now, the one right there, is about the 10 skills that would have saved 80% of the victims of the Bronze Age collapse. 10 simple skills you can learn at home. Today you'll click and maybe live, or you'll scroll and definitely die. If this video made you feel something, fear, anger, urgency, it doesn't matter, leave a comment, even if it's just watching. Because in 5 years, when everything I said is happening, you'll be able to come back here and show it to others. I knew it, I was warned, I prepared myself. Or you won't be able to because you'll be dead. Share it with one person. Just one, the one you really want by your side when everything falls apart. No need to explain anything, just send the link. If they're smart, they'll understand. If they're not, you tried. And if you've made it this far, to the end, you're already different from the 97% who gave up in the first minute. You have a chance. A small one. But there is. The next video could be the difference between you becoming a statistic or becoming a survivor. The choice has always been yours. 11/77 before. CR. They didn't have YouTube to warn them. You have it. Use it while it still exists.